Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world who share their expertise and insights so we can all grow together. I'm going to tell you, I'm really excited to be learning more about my guest and their business today. We've had an amazing conversation behind the scenes, more conversation than I've ever had. And he's an awesome guy. You're going to love him. And if you're new to our podcast, welcome. You're in for a treat today. And I'm your host, Heidi Schalk, co-founder of HLH Growth Solutions, where we work with businesses to scale their revenue through strategic visibility methods so you can expand and grow your reach. But without further ado, welcome to the show, Anthony Bay with Techquity. So excited to dive deeper with you, Anthony.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So, Anthony, can you tell us a little bit about you, about your company, and the role that you play within it?
Sure. So I have spent my career in tech, starting with, I did some startups in my 20s. I bought an Apple II computer just to date myself, was my first computer. Yeah. So the grandkids could have been a tip. And bought Macintosh the day they came out, another thing. But I worked at Apple for a number of years, including 3 in Paris. And our daughter was actually born in Paris. Wow. I was at Microsoft for a period of time. I ran different product groups, engineering groups, internet related things at Microsoft, and I was part of the exec staff. I left for family reasons. You know, we were talking a little bit about family priorities, and I was at that moment in life overweighted in my professional life and underweighted in my family life. And it got to that moment where I needed to make some changes. So I started going on boards, public boards and private boards. I've been on 4 public boards, 3 in the US and 1 in Europe. I've been chairman of a few private companies. And so after that, during that, I was recruited to go to Amazon, and I ran Amazon Prime Video globally for a while, and then went and ran a music company called RDO, which we sold to Pandora. And then, so I've been around tech and media and commerce and internet and mobile and, you know, all those things, for a long time. And so, you know, I had that career arc, and the genesis of Techquity was really 2 things. I can pause there for a moment if you wanted to ask me anything, you know, about that professional arc.
You've done a lot, and I would love to learn more about what inspired you to start Techquity, which I think you were heading into.
Sure, I will do that. I would also say that on a personal basis, we all have our passions. I've been a passionate, you know, conservationist and environmentalist my whole life, and so so balancing that on a shall we say passion along with the professional arc I described. The genesis of Techquity was actually, in hindsight, relatively straightforward. Mm-hmm. So in the world we live in, and I spent my career in tech, you know, through all the iterations of things that have happened in the last 40 years. And most companies, I would say any company today that wants to be a successful company, that aspires to be great, has to be great at tech in some fashion. They're not a tech company, but if you don't learn how to leverage tech and use tech, you know, in some pretty important ways, you know, at the moment, people talk about AI, but it's much more expansive than that. If you aren't able to do that, you're unlikely to be one of the winners. It's just the way the world works, and because other people will use tech better than you, and they will in one form or another out execute you. So you kind of have that backdrop, which I think is getting more acute, not less. However, the vast majority of business people, successful business people, in our case, our clients are CEOs and investors, private capital, primarily private equity and venture. And the majority of those people, CEOs and investors, are surprisingly, in a sense, not for the most part that technically literate. Mm-hmm. They're very good at what they do. I'm sure you meet lots and lots of people who are very successful in business, but tech isn't tech hasn't been part of their necessarily North Star. So the challenge for those people that I described is how are you going to win? How are you going to compete? Who's going to be your coach? Who's going to be your mentor? What, how do you avoid mistakes? How do you learn to look around corners? And so that was kind of the, if you will, the opportunity and the need. And on the other side, there's a set of people. It's not a huge group, but there are people who get to a say similar place that I got to, where you've been a successful executive in tech. We're all builders and operators, so engineering or product, not marketing, sales, or not that those are not great things, different things. And so we've all been people who are, building and designing and operating, really large scale tech for, companies everyone's heard of, and as well as, earlier stage companies. People get to this place in their career where you can continue to stay in one of those jobs. You get to the place where I would say it's people in their late 40s into 50s is where it gets to this. All right, what do I want to do when I grow up? What do I want to do with the next phase of my life? And you can stay in one of those really well-paying jobs and be a cog in a wheel, even if you're a big cog, which is fine. But at some point, a lot of people are kind of been there, done that. What do I want to do? You can start your own business or join, in our world, join an earlier stage tech company. And, those things require you to be all in. If you're successful in business, and in particular, even, more accentuated, if you're going to be successful in tech, you really have to be all in. Mm-hmm. And so you're making a different life decision about priorities. And, from a financial point of view, it's a lottery ticket. And so, people can say, great, I'll go do one of those. Or many people say, I want to be an independent consultant. I want to be, I want to be a coach. I want to be an advisor. It's very hard to do alone, as you have learned. You're subscale. And so the genesis of Techquity if those are three different places. You could be in a big company, a smaller company, or kind of on your own. Techquity is a fourth place. So Techquity is a collective of senior tech executives who want to stay involved, want to stay engaged, want to be able to help, but want a different professional model. So rather than be involved in a particular single company, they want to be able to help and engage and work with other, multiple companies. So a portfolio of work instead of one. They want to continue to not be alone. All of us, business is a team sport. You look at any successful business and, it's a team. It's never one person. And when you're by yourself, you lose that. I mean, you ended up finding a partner, finding someone to work with, because there's just so much energy in being part of a team. Mm-hmm. And you lose that if you're an individual, trying to be an individual, consultant or something. So the basic premise of Techquity is a set of people you couldn't hire, but you can have access to if you're in those buckets. And so we are less a traditional consultant and more of a co-pilot. So we will come in and help assess what's really going on. It tends to be bigger companies, not massive necessarily, but, companies with enough investment in tech and enough customers. So we'll come in and, a lot of times the CEO is like, things aren't right. We aren't shipping things that are right. Our software is not running properly. I'm worried about security. I think I have too many people, but I don't know. I don't know if I should trust this person. I can't actually tell whether what they're telling me is, I don't know. And so you get this kind of gray fog. And so you don't really have anybody you can trust. And so our value proposition is to be a trusted partner, a trusted advisor. We say co-pilot because, sometimes we'll get in there and help, and help on the wheel, but so that's what we do. And, we've been around for 4 or 5 years now, and it's all been word of mouth, and sort of 1 degree of separation. So very long-winded answer, but that was the genesis of, I wanted to create a place that I could work in for as long as I wanted to keep working, because I don't want to retire. And a lot of people, it's like, what's my alternative to retiring? Whether I've made enough money or whether I'm at that place in life where I want, what are my options? And so this alternative to getting off is really that's the that's Techquity.
I love it. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I love how you share that you are your co-pilot. You're like you're there as support, as a team support, and really helping them with guiding them on their journey. And you're here to be a team player and really invested in their goals, which I think that is probably why you have been so successful. It's not like you're just checking off boxes. Like, yes, we did this for you. You're invested in what their goals and outcomes are. Can you walk us through Anthony, the vision behind Techquity and how you define success for both your clients and your company?
Yeah, so well, thanks for the question. I think I kind of touched on that. I mean, the vision is, to some degree, we're actually inventing a new form of company structure and professional services. We've heard from a number of clients, I didn't know anyone like you existed, because the classic consulting firms are designed around a small number of senior people and then junior people, whether they're MBAs or who they are, but they have a pyramid, if you will. The classic structure is a pyramid. You pay a lot of money, and in a lot of cases you get a checklist, or you get here's a PowerPoint, go do this, and there's not a sense of us, and so our model is different. Our model is that none of us are actually employees. We're a collective. We work together. It was like, I would say, I was trying to come up with a metaphor that didn't sound overly aggressive, but like a pride of lions or something. Where it's where the point is, it's about team and it's about collaboration. And so the vision for that is, as I said, how do we evolve this fourth place so that it's a model for us, but it's also a model, I think, in a variety of other industries. It doesn't have to just be tech, but you get people who get to that place, which leads people a lot of time to start their own practice. You started a practice that's really based on you, and your product is some form of you, and so that discipline applies to a lot of places. So it was, how do we create a new model given where the world is today? And we're at a moment that makes it possible. One of the things that happened in COVID is it really, with the tools for what we're doing right here really happened. So the infrastructure happened across a bunch of things. You could now be virtual, but be very present. And in addition to that, what has happened lately with AI is, in our case in particular, although it applies all over the place. We can talk about a lot of those, learnings. But in our case, a lot of what you used to have, more junior people, or very competent, but younger MBAs or other people, you don't need people to do that as much anymore. The generative AI tools are very good at research. They're very good at helping you write. You have to be careful that that you're not delegating too much. There's for all kinds of reasons, but in terms of assistance and help. So the tools that are there really, I think, make possible a way to provide expertise on a fractional basis to people that can be super valuable. So, that's the vision for us. And on the other side is, there's thousands and thousands of companies and investment companies who don't have access to the kind of help, that they need, and they struggle, and they fail not because of the opportunity, but because of the execution. And so if we can help people doing important, good things to not fail and to be successful, that's wonderful.
It is wonderful. So, Anthony, Techquity sits on the intersection or at the intersection of technology and equity. So, what does that mean in practice, and why is it needed more now than ever?
Well, yes. So, equity means a lot of things. In this case, equity is primarily related to financial equity. And although, it has other aspects in the sense of helping create more equity as it relates to people understanding tech. But the basis of the term originally was ultimately the we live in a capitalist economy, and ultimately one of the more important success metrics is whether you can be financially successful. I mean, you talked about it. It's there's philanthropy, which is wonderful, and then there is business, and businesses need to thrive, and in order to basically support both them customers and themselves. And so that was the premise, is that we're going to help build equity value. We're going to help companies create value by successfully executing, and that we're going to help in that sense through tech. And so, as I said, the simplest way to see it is by helping to create valuable, sustainable organizations. But there are other flavors to it as well that touch on equity more broadly. But that was the genesis of the name, is creating more equity through tech.
I love it. So what you mentioned AI, and so let's go there. What role does AI play in Techquity's platform, and how are you ensuring innovation without sacrificing, say, ethical responsibility?
So a platform for us is people. All right. So we are fundamentally a professional services firm, and our value add is the expertise and the history and the scars. And so that's the core, period. And the question then is, how can we amplify that, both in the sense of the classic amplification of a tool. You can do a lot more with a shovel than with your hands. So I come from the Steve Jobs original school, which is all these things are tools, and how the tool gets used is where the value creation comes. So from that point of view, it's an amazing tool for us in a bunch of different ways, in terms of research, in terms of just document summarizing. And a lot of what we do is people centric. We found that I think this is probably true of everything, but it's definitely true of tech. The foundation, is the leadership and the people and the organization and the process. And that people focus a lot of times on exactly which tech am I using, and those are second order questions. The first order question is, who are the people working on this, and how are they going to organize? And again, like a professional sports team, it's lousy players badly coached, with a good playbook are not going to win games. And so that's I think of it in really in that sense. So for us, it's an augmentation tool, and because that's how we use it, we're not we're not delegating in that sense. I mean, where you see people get into trouble, whether it's trying to shortcut on writing or or legal briefs or things like that, we're not doing that. So it's a tool, and how you use the tool is the key. And I think that metaphor, frankly, is true, generally with AI. If you spend a lot of time in the press, you can get distracted by, whether it's this company or this tech and, all these other kinds of things. But fundamentally, it's sort of, the good news is the competition in language models, the competition between companies, and the amazing decline in cost make things possible that would otherwise not have been possible. So it's really about getting on the learning curve, and trying to figure out. I'll shut up for a minute here, but I could go on this for a while.
No, it's great. And you're sharing so much. And I agree. What I'm gathering from some of the things that you shared is like culture is really important. It's not going to change that. AI is fantastic if used effectively and properly. And it's really more about efficiency, but we still need to be paying attention to what that is giving us, right? It's just not just relying fully
Yeah.
on AI. You had mentioned earlier philanthropy, and you also shared about, your team. And we're going to share with everybody at the end how to go learn more about Techquity. But I encourage you when we get there to go do it, because I've been on the website, I've done my research, and it's interesting how everybody is partners. You call everybody partners on there; they're not employees. So can you share more about
Yeah.
what that means?
Yeah, I will. I want to have one final note on AI. And what I described is what we would refer to as AI enhanced. And so the next generation will be at some time be AI first. We actually have a Substack and wrote a piece on this, which I think is pretty good. But you need to start by figuring out how AI helps you do things better. And then at some point, the question is, how can AI help you do new things that weren't possible before in serving customers? So at the end, if you go to our website, techquity.ai, you can find our Substack, and this is there. So the question you asked, the answer to that kind of comes back to things I said before, which is we're all partners. We don't have junior people. There isn't a hierarchy. These are all people who have strong pedigrees and experience and successes and failures and scars. Because you don't go through business. Anybody who tells you they've always been successful is either lying or delusional. Yeah. And so it's that group of people. And when I talked about the structure, that's the premise here. I was the founder of this, and I'm the CEO, but it's a group of partners, and we collaborate together on projects. We are slowly adding more people, but who all in some way or another, raise the bar of what's available. And the premise of all of that is how all these skills and assets and resources are, how do we add value to our clients, and what are the kinds of things that they would need. So it is a collective. We refer to ourselves as a collective. It's a firm, but it's not a classic firm. And that's why I was talking about this idea of a fourth place. It's not a hierarchy.
Yeah. So can you share with us how Techquity uses technology to drive more equitable outcomes for traditionally underserved and overlooked communities?
It's a great question. I kind of hinted at this. Before, and I think the answer to that is primarily through our clients. We have a client right now that is the largest provider of sign language services, in the United States. And so for hard of hearing people, I was unaware in any depth that, if one of us were deaf, how would we have a conversation? And in particular, as the world has gotten virtual like this, how do you enable people who are hearing impaired to be able to participate, both in physical locations, practically, as well as this? And so we're helping that company along the arc that I described, which is you're providing a really valuable service. You're the experts in how to do this. Our question is, how do we help you do that more effectively, do that better, and be more successful? And so, we've had, another big client is focused on being the leader. It's a big design, engineering, and construction company that wants to be the leader in sustainable engineering. So they used to build coal-fired power plants, and they shifted to sustainable energy and treatment of wastewater, and they're all around the world. And how do they build infrastructure? We all take it for granted, that when you go to the tap it works, when you flush it works, and when you turn on the power it works. But by the way, that's a localized phenomenon, and we're all very fortunate to have that. And so this company is building sustainable infrastructure all around the world, and they've been around for 100-something years. And so how do we help them do that better? So our biggest tip of the spear, if you will, is helping companies with, trying to do good things, to do them.
I really like love that you shared, because what came up for me is for, for those listening, if you have an idea, whether you're in business on or not, but if you have an idea and you believe it can make an impact, then make it happen. Take action on it, because you're doing what you're doing, Anthony, you are now being able to make a ripple effect in these other areas of really making a difference for people in different ways. And like you shared, you didn't even know about this really, like you didn't
No.
understand that what they go through. But by you taking action on this vision that you had for you and creating this, your business, you're now being able to make a huge impact and difference for other people. And you're learning more about it in the process, which I think is really
Yep.
spectacular. And the ripple effect that we don't realize when we go to start a business or as an entrepreneur, we don't realize what difference we're going to be making and the changes and the people we're going to be affecting. And I think it's a beautiful bonus. And it's not something that I've talked about much on this podcast. So I'm really glad that you brought light to that, because I think it's an important piece that doesn't get talked about enough. So can you share,
If
Anthony?
I can say one
Yeah,
thing, I
go ahead.
think that is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Um, Ultimately, all of us are here to add value as human beings and make a difference in other people's lives. And the best satisfaction I have ever found in my life is when I'm doing things and helping other people. And we've evolved to a culture that's very much me first and what's in it for me, as opposed to who's the we and how do I help and how do I serve. And I think what you just said is super important. If there's something that you can do that can make a difference, it's got to be a business, or else it's philanthropy. But get out there and make the world a better place.
Yeah. And there's a ways to incorporate philanthropy into your business, right? But you
Yes.
have to be able to generate the money and keep the doors open in order to make that happen.
Yep.
And I think sometimes people think the reverse, and unfortunately, it just doesn't, as much as we'd love it
No.
to, it doesn't work that way. Can you share, and I'm watching time to be respectful of your time, and I know we're running out, but can you share, you've done a lot in your life and in your career, and especially with starting this starting Techquity. Can you share some challenges that you've been through in your growth and how you've overcome them?
Yeah, it could be a long conversation, so I'll try.
We don't have that
I'll,
much
I'll,
time.
I'll try to make it short. I have always been attracted to early stage things, entrepreneur or entrepreneur in a bigger company. So to creating something where that thing didn't exist before, as opposed to another super valuable thing is iterating on something and continuing to grow and make it better all the time. So the most important thing for me is something related to what I said a second ago, and that is work backwards from the person you're serving, work backwards from the customer, identify a real need, and don't ever lose sight of the North Star is that anything you do has to be in service of someone who's going to give you value in return. In the case of a business, it's money. And again, many people are the other way around. I'm really cool. Let me go find, somebody that I will pay me. But that's not the way to do it. Amazon, whatever people may think about Amazon, Amazon is relentlessly, brilliantly amazing at this. You work backwards from your customers. What do you get up every day and how do I delight my customers in new ways? So that's the North Star. I think my AirPods just died, but
I can hear you.
oh, good. All right. Maybe it's just telling me it's about to die. So that for me is the main thing is that make sure that you think about that. And then, there's also you hinted a bit, the realism factor. Not every good idea is a good business.
Yeah.
But set out on the journey. Someone once said, it doesn't matter. The course you set for the sailboat doesn't matter until you get out of the harbor. So you got to get out there and you got to start sailing, and then learn. I'm sure, as you found, it's what you thought in the beginning is never how it turns out. So
yeah. In order to grow, you're always navigating challenges, and you just got to keep going forward.
Yep, exactly.
So how can people connect with you, Anthony, and learn more about Techquity?
Sure. The website is Techquity, TECHQUITY.ai. That's the best place. I'm on LinkedIn, Anthony Bay, and those are the two best places. And I encourage you to go learn more about us. We have a Substack where we write about a lot of these things. And so if you're, if you're a Substack person, if you're not, it's a great platform. But you can subscribe to that and get some pithy little things that we have to say.
Perfect. So make sure that you connect with Anthony on LinkedIn. Make sure you go to techquity.ai. We're going to have all of his links, including his bio and more information about Anthony and Techquity in the show notes. So make sure you go there. Anthony, is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up that I didn't ask you or we didn't get to touch on? I know we moved kind of fast.
No, I think it was great. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the questions. I've enjoyed the discussion, and congratulations to you on the journey that you're on.
Thank you. And thank you for being a part of this journey. I appreciate you. If for you listening, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, leave a message for Anthony, reach out to him, and please share Anthony and Techquity with anybody that you think would benefit from learning more about them and about him. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform and you can hit that review button, please do hit it, give us 5 stars. We'd love it. This allows us to reach more people and share with them our amazing guests like Anthony and his company Techquity with more people and helping more businesses and more people transform lives and create their own success. If you are looking to grow your visibility, I'm going to give you a gift. If you're trying to do all the things and you feel like you're spinning your wheels and you're not getting the success that you want, then go ahead and download our free Spotlight to Scale blueprint. You can go to spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint. It's free. It's yours. Go grab it. One more time, go check out Anthony. Go connect with him. Anthony Bay on LinkedIn. Go to techquity.ai. Go learn more about their amazing company and business and reach out to him. Thank you, Anthony, again, for being an amazing leader on this podcast. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Anthony and I today on the Business Growth Spotlight. We will see you next time.